And we're live. Thanks everyone for joining. It's a little bit of a different one today. Joe can't make it, but we're joined by two special guests and two people that have been on the show before. Obviously, we're doing our round review, so maybe we'll talk a little bit of Supercoach and then kind of go into the teams, players we liked, players we didn't like, all that kind of stuff. Steve, how you doing, Matt? Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Big J. It's always a massive honour jumping on the Centre Bounce channel. I love doing being on the channel and being involved with these live streams. Good to be with Jaden as well. So do our first little video together. So yeah, it should be a good night.
100%. And Jaden, I'm gonna butcher your last name, but Popowski. You know him as the stats man, and yeah, all round good guy's been on the show before. But how you doing, mate? How's your day been?
Yeah, pretty good, and thank you for having me on. A little while since I jumped on this preseason to talk through some scoring stuff, but yeah, it's certainly been a lot of happenings in the season so far, so more than happy to jump on and talk them through.
100%. I mean, we've had players be injured, we've had suspensions come through, and then obviously just the general Supercoach scoring as well. How did you guys both go this week? Maybe start with Steve first.
Yeah, so I went 2,092. So I was really happy with that. I feel like that's a pretty good score this week. So I'll take that. I think there were a couple of good reasons why. I mean, watching Zach Butters as my skipper on the Sunday certainly brought a tear to my eye. And I'm 24 years old. So, that was absolutely grouse. And then Saturday, I wasn't even watching the North Melbourne Freo game. I know your mob got done, but Dogger Jackson just went nuclear against North. So, yeah, there was a couple of good factors with my score. So I'm really happy with how the team's shaping. And, this is the big week of trades this week. So, just got to get it right now.
Yeah, definitely. How about you, Jaden? How'd you go this week?
Yeah, I got 1987, so a little bit under what I probably would have wanted. Mainly... I did have Butters, but the big letdown was Dacos. So it's a bit unfortunate. And essentially with my starting team, what I did was start him in the midfield, which probably wasn't the greatest idea in hindsight, just because I'm spending up the same amount as what I could have got a premium mid for. But we're all right. I'm going to stick through it and see how we go. But 1987, not too bad.
Mate, I reckon I've got shafted here. I've invited you guys on the show, and I'm the worst scoring. I only scored 1923 this week, and boy, oh boy, I mean, I didn't have Jackson, but I had Butters. He wasn't my captain, and yeah, I think I had a few more players on the bench scoring more than I had players on field. One of those terrible weeks, I think.
Yeah, it's just one of those weeks where there was a lot of different scores around different players, and there were some little decisions that could have been very crucial towards everyone's score. So it was a very interesting week, and pretty excited for another 22 rounds.
Yeah. Is it pretty fair to say, Jaden, that this week might end up being one of the more crucial weeks in Supercoach in terms of players you bring in and players you maybe don't bring in your team this week?
Yeah, definitely. Like we see it every single year. Like normally at this time, all the players are on the bubble all together. But this year we've had that little bit of an offset. So we've had a little bit of an advantage already. But yeah, this is the most crucial week to the last chance to get the players you want, really, before they all skyrocket in price. And it's so crucial to get that money started early because it dries up by the end of the year, so definitely important this week.
Yeah, and I guess there's already been a couple of not sucker picks, but definitely a couple of dodgy picks. In some people jumped on Tom Berry, thought he was going to be amazing, and then he's only made like 40 odd K, and then had his buy and probably isn't going to jump that high in price. Have either of you guys kind of had some of those players already, or you held off this week?
I didn't go for Tom Berry. I actually wanted to get him in, but just couldn't quite fit him in. I'd sort of had to ruin my structure to get Tom Berry in, and I just felt like that's not the right move. So it's like, I skipped Berry, but Yeah, I mean, I thought Berry. I don't think that matchup was very friendly, nor the conditions were very friendly for Berry. But yeah, I definitely would have thought he would have done better than that. So yeah, it's a tough one. But no, I didn't go down the Berry route there. So yeah,
Jaden?
No, I didn't go for him purely because I was looking towards this week. I have Cadman and Sexton, so I would have been running without 22 on field, which probably I didn't really want to go for. So yeah, didn't work out for me, and yeah, pretty pleased to pass on that for now.
Yeah, Hoop says here they were pretty stupid. The people who went on Berry a bit early. I guess that kind of brought into your team, and then you've spent a trade getting him in, and you're going to have to spend a trade getting him out. So, yeah, it's not going to be much fun. Before we kind of jump into the teams for the week and how each team went, that kind of thing, I've been noticing this week especially, but even just from round one, our defense at the moment is so depleted. Just rookies every single game getting injured or scoring 20s and 30s. What are your guys' plans to do in the back line? Maybe start with Jaden first.
Yeah, I did cop quite a few of them. Probably not as many as some other people, but Reed and Gibcus in round one was what got me. It fixed up Gibcus last week. Like I said, I started Dacos in the mids, so that allowed me to a lot more flexibility. But yeah, I'm still stuck with Reed. And I know a lot of people would have had Caulfield. They probably would have had Hoare, who went all right, but was a sub. So, yeah, I think initially the obvious thing is getting in D'Ambrosio, which is very popular at this stage.
Negative 82 break even. You can't really go much further than that. What do you reckon, Steve?
Yeah, the back line's an absolute struggle. Seemed like the right structure at the minute. Very early days is to would have been to go the 4 primo mids and just the less defender rookies, the better. But I feel like I've gotten out of jail a little bit. Like I had Gibcus and Reed, but in round one they were both on my bench. Didn't go Caulfield, so I feel like I've gotten pretty lucky there. But yeah, I parted ways with Gibcus. I brought in Mass early, which I just wasn't a fan of, but I got him in because I heard Hoare would be sub. So I just thought, let's just do it. So I got very lucky there because that's a type of move that could sort of kill you. So very lucky with from that. But yeah, the back line's really struggling. Dacos is going to start dropping money. You got Hayden Young as well. That just looks like a complete dud pick at this stage. And yeah, just not much really going on down back. I think people are really going to want to get as many rookies off the defense line as possible. I mean, really, Blake Howes is really the only rookie that you can sort of rely on at this stage. And some people bring in Toby Pink, that sort of thing. So yeah, the back line's not looking any good.
Yeah, definitely. That's the way that I'm feeling about it too. Just I wish we could have, had the foresight and the thought to come in and just stack the back line, especially after that first game, Carlton Richmond, where 2 bad scores already for a lot of our starting teams. I just don't know if we're going to get much else. I know this week I brought in, or I'm probably going to bring in Massimo and then offload Young and then just kind of throw some money at that spot and see what can happen. So, yeah, we'll go through the team shortly. And I think a lot of people in the chat, we're very, very lucky that it's best 18 because I know a couple of my dud scores are coming out of that back line.
Yeah, I think all of my best 18 scores, like 4 of the 6 were defenders, like including Hayden Young and that type. So it's bloody rough. So it's just all about adapting and adjusting with what's going on, really.
Yeah, definitely. Have you found anything crazy with the stats at the moment, Jaden?
Not really. I think like just in terms of individual players, it's probably a bit more relevant. There doesn't seem to be anything too extreme going on. The model that I talked about in preseason is holding up. It's actually made it a little bit more accurate, actually. So it's good to know that the stats are all lining up still. And yeah, all working, which is good. They haven't shut off any access, which is amazing.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've kind of spoken about off air, on air, to whoever will listen, is that rucks just aren't scoring the monster numbers that we've had in previous. I don't know if the game's going quicker or something's happening, but the rucks just in general, the last couple of weeks, maybe there's been one score of a 150 plus and that's it. Everyone else is cool, 120s, 130s. So I don't know who else is sucking up all the points. Maybe it's the forwards. Maybe it's the defenders again, a lot more running off halfback. Have you guys noticed that as well?
Yeah. Just like I was surprised, like English didn't go as English went really well, and I expect another good score from him this coming week. But certainly, just I thought he would have gone maybe 150 plus there. Got Max Gawn, who I think is just going to be a bit of a roller coaster when it comes to scoring. I think that's just the type of player he is now, and at that age where he'll be able to dominate certain matchups, but not so much with some others. And then we've got Rowan Marshall, who's going good. He's not fully firing, but he's got a good role and no early buy, so he's going well. Briggs seems a bit inconsistent early days. You've got Grundy, who just isn't firing like I thought he would as the main ruck there at Sydney. He's going fine, but he's been a little bit disappointed. And then you've got blokes like Sherry as well, who looks like who's taken a step up in the ranks of the AFL rucks and that sort of thing. So obviously Darcy down as well. So yeah, there's a bit going on. There's a lot of options going on in Supercoach, and it's just really trying not to get overwhelmed with the amount of different options.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's hit a couple of these questions before we head into our first game for today. So let's check. Thoughts on Windhager with Brad Crouch omitted on Thursday? Looks like he got all of Crouch's CBAs. Is he someone who's been in your guys' calculations at the moment? I know there's a few people on the Fantasy Take Discord that have been considering and talking about him.
He did look very good on Thursday night, and I'm just looking at his score. He's 104. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, as the midfielder, pure midfielder, he looks really good. So it will depend on whether Crouch returns. He played, so I'm not sure if he got dropped or was he kind of a little bit managed. A little bit managed because he only played I think a half in the VFL. So there's a bit going on there. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. But yeah, I like him. I think he's he looked really good. He's obviously had a pretty good preseason up until that hand injury. So yeah, definitely one to keep an eye on with the lack of defenders we've been talking about.
Yeah, I actually do really like Marcus Windhager as a pick, but for me personally, I don't think I'm quite going to be able to fit him in. But I think if people want to go down that route, then he's certainly not the worst option in the world. Like he's playing. I still think even if Crouch comes back, I don't think Windhager will get affected too much because I think it's time's now to really explode, and he's looking like a fantastic young player for the Saints. So I think Zach Jones played in the middle as well when he came on as sub due to the unfortunate Mason Wood injury. So I do like Windhager, and I think he can stick to that role. It might be more your defensive midfielder sort of role, but that will result in a lot of tackles. Like I think in a couple of weeks we'll see him go to Tom Green and certainly look to limit his output there. So no, I like Windhager, and I think a lot of people will be tossing up whether to go Windhager or Tom Powell in my book.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess kind of it's a bit of an awkward price to me at $323K, and we're going a bit cheaper in Massimo, Zach Williams in the back line, and then he probably doesn't really fit in the midfield for me. So never really had him in my calculations until the 102 this week. Hey Strelzy, how you going, mate? Let's check. Yeah, Corey says here he chose Sanders on the bench over Berry. So that kind of sucks. I did the same thing. And, yeah, copped a 50 instead of a 95, which isn't great.
Yikes.
Yeah, like Travis is saying, he fielded Sam Berry over Sanders and Sexton over Cadman. Yeah, I did the same things too. So there you go. There's 100 points in the bin. Yeah. So Powell, I don't know if Tom Powell is in your guys' calculations or not at the moment.
He is. He is certainly a high consideration to be added to my team this week. I think the role speaks for itself. 76% CBAs, and the previous week, and then 93% CBAs.
No,
massive.
It was big.
It was massive against Freo. So, especially down in our forward line, just due to so many other options last year being moved into the midfield this year. I think a bloke like Powell, if he can hold that role, which I think he can, I can't really think of anyone else that can that isn't in North Melbourne's side that can ruin his midfield rotations. So I think he's a new man in that North Melbourne midfield. I did really like him heading into the draft and that sort of thing. So I know he was a good ball accumulator. He was a good rookie for us back a couple of years back as well. So I do really like Tom Powell, and I do think he can stick in that role. Once again, very similar to Windhager. I think he's going to be more your defensive midfielder, but I think that's a bloke you need for North Melbourne. So, I really like him, and I think a lot of people should be considering him.
Yeah, definitely. I know he's in my calculations. He's currently in my team, so I'm very, very happy. Looks like he's playing a really good defensive mid-role, which is kind of what we're looking for at North Melbourne. I was speaking to DR off air a few hours ago, and just talking about how so many points from the team in North Melbourne has disappeared through trade period, through delistings, and players just retiring in general. So there's a lot of points between these players just to soak up, and we might see a little bit more out of LDU, a bit more out of Sheasel in the back line. Obviously, McKercher could end up being, a 95 average player for a rookie. That's pretty crazy. And then Tom Powell as well, kind of coming out of nowhere. Jaden, he's in your calculations. You're going to chuck him in this week?
Yeah, he looks really good. The promising thing that I actually noticed, and it's one of my new favourite stats, and that's like handball receives. He had 16 on the weekend, and that's ridiculously high. So I know in Supercoach it's not scored that well. It's only usually around 1 point, but it's more what you do after that. So he's got the handball receive. That's a free disposal after that. It means he's not just the inside mid type where we see it a lot with the defensive midfielders. They tend to only do one thing, but he seems to be like in and under, getting handballs to him and also feeding them out. So that's really promising, and it shows the proof of the midfield role, really.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there was a stat as well that came out this week. It was basically talking about his pressure acts and other stuff he does on field. I think he had second highest pressure acts for the game in 26. So there's like your cheeky 1%ers like we've been talking about as well. So just some extra stat padding, but also means he's getting around and doing quite a lot. Let me just quickly check. Trade boost. I boosted last week. Did you guys boost?
Yep.
Perfect.
No, I didn't. I just did the one trade. This week I definitely will be though.
Who did you? Yeah. What did you trade last week?
I did Gibcus to Jeremy Sharp last week.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, because you had Dacos, right? You were saying in the mids and then went to the. Yep.
Yeah, and with the defense, I had to. It was actually a forced trade pretty much because I had Williams on the buy and then Reed and Gibcus, so needed two on the bench only. So forced trade, and was fairly happy with everything overall. But boosting this week.
Do we trade Berry to Sexton or to Dempsey this week? Oh, sorry. Do we trade Berry or Sexton to Dempsey this week?
I'm not sure. Yes, both.
Yes. Yeah, I'd take that as the assumption as well.
Probably Berry.
Yeah, and I think so, Berry as well. I think Sexton just has the role. Obviously, one bad game doesn't make up for the fact that he did score the 100 in the preseason. Well, round one, me, and then doing quite well. So. Hold your ghost, who I'm about to go and shout him out for the big $5. Thanks, mate. It's bloody amazing there. He's asking, Matt Crouch or Steele to average more? Who's going to get the highest score this week? Sorry, just in general over the season. Who's your projection?
Well, I think Steele's got a higher ceiling but a lower floor. Then Crouch is certainly more safer. That's tough. I think Steele looks a lot better this year, so I'm going to go Steele. But I don't think it's prime Jack Steele that we're going to get back. But I do think it's going to be around that 110 mark. I think Crouch can do about 106 would be my guess. I think he's been off to a good start, but I do think he's going to be. I think he'll be fine either way with Crouch or Steele. Crouch will be missing consistent. Steele will have those high ceiling games, but maybe some lower floor games mixed into there, depending on the matchup. So I'll go Steele.
Who do you reckon, Jaden?
Yeah, I think Steele as well. He just looks really good. Crouch did as well, but a big problem for the Saints last year was they just had so much of the ball, and they also gave up a lot to their opposition. So what that meant with the 3,300 rule, you'd have players that are getting the same stat lines that score a lot less. So these two players could have been doing exactly the same stat-wise, but still would have been averaging less. This year it seems to be evening out. The Adelaide game was a very high stat. So Crouch lost a few just from that, and Steele was about bang on. So secured to look a little bit more balanced in terms of conceding points and scoring points. So I'm keen on Steele.
Yeah, I guess I would say Steele as well. I think the ceiling's there, and I just think Matt Crouch looks like he's going to break down. I'm just waiting for like the hammy or the ankle or whatever else to come through every so often. So we'll see what happens. All right, I reckon we might jump into the first game. Cool. And we are talking Saints versus Collingwood. So a bit of a tricky one, this game. I did not expect the Saints to win. Let's be honest. I thought Collingwood was actually going to come back and win this game. How did you guys see it? Obviously on the Thursday night.
Good game. There was a lot going on with that game, so there was a lot to take in there. Collingwood now 0-3, so I think their top 4 hopes. They're really going to have to flick the switch real quick to get there. But speaking more Supercoach, obviously Windhager was a standout with being being very near Dacos for a lot of the stoppages, and certainly just showing his strength on him. I think Dacos, obviously, though, I think that's fair to say that's the worst game of his career, early days in his illustrious young career. So Dacos obviously lowered his colours, but I think he'd be one to bounce back. I thought the Saints just really controlled most of the game, and that really helped blokes like Jack Steele, of course. And from one thing I'm learning as well, I know we're only getting 2 or 3 games worth of sample size here, but it does seem like Darcy Cameron has taken a step up, and he seems to be a bit more of a restrictive ruck from what I've noticed. So with Grundy going 71 and Marshall, I mean, 106, nothing to be disappointed with. But obviously we know how good of a ruckman Marshall is. We saw Sinclair first game back as well after a big layoff as well. So there's a lot of things to consider. You've got blokes like Liam Henry as well out for 6 weeks with the hamstring issues. Mason Wood's out, so that opens up opportunity for Darcy Wilson to lock down a main wing role for the Saints, along with Ryan Burns probably. Zach Jones we haven't seen in a while, so could that affect Windhager? I don't think so. Then Collingwood, like Lipinski, put in a good shift there. And we saw Finlay McRae in the last quarter, who I think he's better than that. But once again, sub, it's a bit tough for him to get a real feel on the game when he keeps getting into the 4th quarter, and he's getting thrown right in the guts when the heat of the game's already on. So they're throwing him in the deep end a real bit. That's really the main takeaways for me.
Yeah, definitely. And McRae scored a 12 off 2 free kicks. So, I mean, it's not great in terms of scoring anyway. I think for me, the Saints definitely came in and just punished them. Obviously, Windhager, maybe that's a role that we'll see from now on. But Nick Dacos just looked lost. Is that what you kind of saw with this game, Jaden, or was it fairly even for you?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a difficult watch because I am a Pie supporter, but to be honest, I'm not too worried because last year was obviously the fairy tale, and to be honest, I don't think we were ever that good, but that makes the fairy tale even better. But 3-0, never good, but I don't really mind too much. In terms of Dacos, yeah, it was tough. Not a lot of contested. Still a few, but yeah, not what you would expect, especially over the opening games of the year. And that's all down to Windhager there. Probably could have seen it coming, to be honest, with what Windhager has done over the last year or so. I didn't actually realise he was in the team for round one. I thought he came back in straight for Dacos, but he was playing. So he's on the bubble this week. But yeah, in terms of what I liked, Steele looked really good. And there you go. 50 plus in the first quarter.
I was so sad that I didn't own Jack Steele. Like, when he started going big, he had a couple of handballs and some tackles. I was just like, mate, am I going to get super punished by not owning Jack Steele? Is the 200 score game coming in, Jaden? I think we're lucky with the 120.
Yeah, and he was someone I had across all different fantasy things, and then I ended up not really starting with him anywhere, which is rough because I did a lot of research into him and had him all pre-season. But yeah, I think the standout was Nasai Wanganeen-Malira for me. He just looked amazing, like just getting the ball so often. Kicking was fairly solid, and yeah, like most of his points came from the kicks. He had 12 short, 5 long, and 2 that were long to advantage. So that was around 60 of his points right there. So very good. And yeah, I think he was pretty comfortably best on.
Yeah, and a lot of people I've seen have jumped on him as well, being as a downgrade option. Maybe not a downgrade option, but a cheaper option for a Hayden Young type who also doesn't have the early buy. Coming in at 475k, 110 average at the moment, and really cemented that spot in Saints backline. I know that Joe and I and a few other people, we started him last year and was like, mate, where was this scoring then? We saw a little bit of it towards the end of the season last year, but he looks cemented in this spot, even with 5 clangers. The guy's still got 120 score for us in Supercoach. So I think a lot of people are going to jump on and they're going to be very, very happy. One of the big standouts for me, obviously, Jack Steele, we've talked about, Higgins, Machito Owens, and then Rowan Marshall. So I know there's been a bit of a toss-up between him and Brodie Grundy. I know a few people Grundy's got the bye. What are we going to do? Maybe jump on Marshall as well. Jack Sinclair, 78, so maybe we'll get him a little bit cheaper down the line. Darcy Wilson, 59. He did some nice things. Didn't play a huge amount of time on field, though. Obviously, only with 67% game time. So I remember that he was stuck on the bench for quite a long, maybe missed out on a rotation or so and ended up on the bench, especially through the second and third quarter. I don't know if you guys picked that up.
Yeah, I saw that. But I do think his stocks will rise a fair bit now with no Wood and no Henry for a bit. So I think Wilson's time on ground should be improved. And he's a good runner as well. He's good. He's got a good tank in him. So I'm actually a bit surprised that they're still that even with. I know it will probably improve after this week, but I was still surprised how low. I know he got stuck there, but still 67% time on ground for a bloke that can really run out a full game. And that was one of his main components about being drafted by the Saints. Ross would have loved that sort of game style with him. So, it's not a big deal, but just probably left a few points on the table as well.
Yeah, and then Joe and I told you guys last week, guys, don't jump on Riley Bonner yet. Similar to a Massimo, you have to wait and see. Obviously, the people that brought him in, a 49 isn't great, and he kind of shuts down his scoring for the first week as well. So, not sure if you guys did it in chat, but yeah, as Luke's saying here, Bono Petite. So, yeah, watch out there. do you guys see Nazaya as a top 6 defender? Do you think he's got the capacity to do it? Or maybe let's say top 6 to 8. Let's not say top 6 because, 4 of them are probably already taken with guys in our teams that we started with. Jaden, top 6?
Yeah. I'm just looking at the defenders that are on the board. I'm hesitant to say yes, probably because he relies a fair bit on the kicking and marking game, so he could get shut down fairly easily. He did look really good, but if that's him being best on ground and it's only a 120, probably doesn't really have the ceiling that we would want for a top 6 defender. Ones that do take contested marks and because he's only really getting 1 point for every time he's getting that uncontested mark. If he's kicking it backwards, not really that good. Kind of want those ones that can maybe have a bit more dynamism to their scoring.
Yeah, fair enough. Steve, top 6 to 8?
Gee, you brought up some great points, Jaden, there, that stuff that I didn't really even think about. I don't know. I think he's a contender. I think he's on the radar, but as you said, Jaden, I think he's a bloke that can get shut down pretty easily. So I think opposition teams might look to stop that and maybe force Riley Bonner or even move Sinclair back. So I don't know. If you started him, I think it's a good pick. But top 6, it's very early in the season, but maybe like top 12, but I'm not going to fully commit to saying top 6 just yet.
Yeah, don't let anyone pull the clips off you and say, hey, in round 2, you came on the show and you said top 6, and now we've got a 50 average because that's going to happen. For me, I'd probably say, let's say top 8 to 10 for me. It really does seem that like most clubs will have 1 or 2 defenders, especially a halfback runner with the way that the game's going and who can kick really far. If Sinclair, I'm not expecting Sinclair to have like an 80 average every week, but someone from the Saints has to step up and start putting out big numbers because Sinclair's been a keeper off halfback. If Nazai is taking that and he's going to be that person, then yeah, we'll definitely see. A few Pies questions here before we head into the next game. Are we trading Nick Dacos after that poor performance? For me, definitely not. But are you guys, I know a few people are doing some switcheroonies and going to trade him out and then trade him back in again.
It did cross my mind. I think it probably goes against the reason for picking him, to be honest. I thought about it from a money point of view, but if you don't trade him out, then the money doesn't matter. So I'm happy to keep him at the moment. And like, if he's a defender status player and he's playing full-time mid, like, you can do a lot worse, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Steve, you're not going to trade out Dacos, are you?
No, I don't think so. I think I've got other fires to put out than trading out Nick Dacos. I think this matchup this week as well can against Brisbane, I think we could see a bounce back game out of Nick Dacos as well, and he has good history against them. So no, not for me. I can understand the reasoning, but I don't. Oh well, I started him, so yeah. It's just one of those games.
As Aiden Staff says here, most likely top 8 for Nazaya, but maybe not top 6. Let's check out the second game. How for the rest of these. So we had the Crows losing to the Cats, and I don't know. Adelaide Oval's always kind of been that powerhouse for me with Adelaide, and yeah, losing this game, I just didn't see it happening. Let me fix up the scoring so we'll see who's on top. But Matt Crouch, massive game. Rory Laird, another big game after everyone saying, oh, he's going to play forward line. Riley O'Brien scoring big as well. So I think he ended up scoring more than both of my ruckmen this week. Let me just quickly check. Yeah, so Riley O'Brien scored more than Gawn and Grundy this week. Obviously not put together, but if you had him over one of those two, you'd be happy. Hinge with a 94, so pretty good with that. Looking from the Adelaide team, was there anyone who kind of struck you as, hey, maybe I should have got them in or got them out? I know Sam Berry kind of broke a few people's hearts like myself with the sub halfway through the second.
This game just sort of. I had Matt Crouch for the majority of the preseason, and that just broke my heart a little bit.
Mhm.
That's why these days, well, especially this year, I was really sort of thriving on myself to being stubborn with some picks. I stuck with blokes like LDU and Zach Butters, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
But yeah, Matt Crouch was the one that got away. Now I brought in Ollie Wines because I needed the cash. So yeah, that was a bit frustrating, but it is what it is. Rory Laird, I think he did start off some part of the centre bounces where you'd come off half forward, then move into the stoppage, but his role was still very good. Anyone that had Jordan Dawson would have been very disappointed again with the lowest score. So he's going to plummet in price and become a upgrade target for us in the midfield, which for non-owners is a very good result.
Mhm.
They didn't play Rankin as much in the middle, so something to monitor there. But I do think they need a bit of spark in that midfield. Then we've got, we got Chris Burgess, who didn't set the world alight. I actually didn't mind him as an option. Sam Berry, of course, getting subbed off. Tom Stewart. I think I know a couple of people saying that he got underscored, but there were a lot of uncontested marks from him. So that sort of hindered his score a little bit, but obviously still a very good score. But I thought that game was very well built up for Tom Stewart. It was just a lot of bad kicks from Adelaide, just right to Tom Stewart there. We had blokes like Max Holmes, who's still providing to be a really solid consideration, I guess. Blitzarves played a little bit in the ruck with Stanley going down at some point. Patrick Dangerfield will miss a couple of weeks with hamstring issues, so they'll be one to monitor with maybe like a Jai Clark who gets even better job security and better job opportunity inside that midfield, especially with the Hawks coming up this week. So, and Hawthorn have been pretty poor in stoppages so far this season, so it could be a big opportunity. But once again, Jai Clark again, though, it's a really golden opportunity. But it's been a little bit underwhelming for considering how good of a role and opportunity he does have. Ollie Dempsey as well. I think this was a trickier matchup for him. He's going up against the Hawks this coming week, though, so that's a positive sign. I think he can kick a couple of snags. Again, Mana started on fire in the first quarter, but really sort of faded out in the game. Also, low time on ground as well there. And, just good win from the Cats. And I tell you what, they can't go away. They seem to be up thereabouts since I started watching footy. So, they're just a tremendous football club.
Yeah, definitely. Jaden, anyone that you noticed from this game? Obviously, we've covered the Crows and then Steve jumped onto the Cats. Anyone from here that you were kind of like, hey, maybe you had in your team or you were considering, or did you jump on the Sam Berry train like me and get kind of heartbroken?
No, certainly not on Sam Berry at all. There was already question marks about Matt Crouch in the team, so I didn't want the fourth in line at all. I think in terms of this game, the takeaway for me was just that the Crows continue to go against the status quo and play a very high stoppage game. So we're seeing Crouch and Laird and even Dawson to an extent score really well as inside midfielders, but it's just that the Crows continue to play high stoppage, and like if you just look at the pure stoppage numbers, the next two in line are Geelong and Gold Coast, and that's because they played Adelaide. So they're really high stoppage. They were the number one last year. So they're really relying on those inside mids still. I'm not sure if it's massively working, although it was only really a goal kicking issue on Friday night, to be honest. But yeah, what that means is you can back in those midfielders, but if they did make any changes, then they're going to drop off very quickly because, there's 10 or so extra stoppages per game in theirs compared to every other team. So that's something to keep an eye on. I guess what else have we got here? Dempsey is interesting. probably
Came
wanted
off
a
a
little bit
98.
more.
Not 98
Yeah.
last week, and then a 60. I know a few people kind of forced him into their teams. I almost did the same thing, so it's very saved, kind of not doing that.
Yeah, so he's got that good break even. So I haven't done too many trades yet, but he looks like one I'll have to get. And yeah, based on his positional splits, he actually played a little bit of mid-time. Not sure if that was more to do with wing, like starting up a bit higher at stoppages, which is promising. So yeah, pretty happy to jump onto him. And yeah, there's not really too many relevant ones from the Cats, but yeah, I did post a bit of a breakdown as to Tom Stewart's scoring over on X. And yeah, it was the uncontested intercept marks compared to the contested one. So I think he had a lot of his points from short kicks, but then 7 of his 10 intercept marks were uncontested. So he nearly scored just as many points from the 3 contested ones as the 7 uncontested ones. So that's the breakdown there. And like I said before, this was a really high stat game. So he did lose a bit. Like if he was playing in another game where there wasn't as many stoppages and contested possessions, then he would have scored a lot better. But he lost around 5 points just from the match being high scoring.
Yeah, fair enough. I've got a couple of questions that kind of fit in with what we were talking about. So a lot of people jumping off Hayden Young. We'll talk about North and Dockers next. But Steve and Jaden, would you rather go Hayden Young to Ryan or Stewart or to Houston, as Scorch Earth says here as well? If you had to choose, getting rid of Hayden Young this week, you've got enough money for the 2 players there. Who are we picking, Tom Stewart or Luke Ryan?
Luke Ryan, I think.
Yeah, Jaden, same for you?
Yeah, I actually do have Dan Houston. I kind of just had him there as a placeholder, and then I got to the end of round 1 and he was still there, and I was like, hang on, what's Houston still doing here? But he's been going all right, actually. Probably wouldn't recommend bringing him in, but I'd be leaning towards if you're going to get off Hayden Young, and you're probably wanting those points to head over to Luke Ryan and gets a big boost from those D50 points. I don't think he ever leaves. So yeah, he loves those.
Cheese is asking here, not a Dawson owner, but what would you guys do with him? Surely you can't trade him. I know a lot of people want to. I think Joe's in the same boat as well this week. 2 sub-100 scores, and that DT to Supercoach ratio this week does not look great. 131, and then he scored a 96 Supercoach. So being around that 650k mark does open a few things up. It does allow you to maybe go him and a Hayden Young down, or him and a Nick Martin to grab 2 of these really good Matt Crouch steel types. Would you guys be considering doing that, or just have to stick fat now that you started him?
I don't know. You pick him as a premium, so it's like one of those things. But at the same time, he's about to plummet in price. But depends on your side. Like there might be many other situations that you might need to sort out first before you worry about Dawson. But unfortunately, it's the week before the prices change. So I think this is very team dependent, this question. But I just don't. I think Crouch does affect Dawson, but I don't know. I would hold, but I think this is very team based.
Well, Joe's asking. Oh no, where is he? Joe's asking Jaden, are we getting rid of Dawson? What did you think of his game, or do you recommend a trade out this week?
Yeah, I didn't actually realise that he scored less points last week than what he did this week. That's pretty rough. So I think it's a different situation to Dacos, where you haven't really seen him go amazing yet. In terms of what his stats look like, his stats look decent. If you just go off his raw stats, it was a 110 in my books. I think there is a few things I'm missing. Maybe there was a few missed tackles from him. He did have 12, but maybe his tackle wasn't as effective as it could have been. So he statistically played well, which is why he did have that high DT score. But yeah, it doesn't seem to be quite working for him. I know towards the back end of last year when Crouch came in, it wasn't actually really to do with his like stoppage kind of work. Crouch was actually benefiting Laird and Dawson at stoppage, but it was more just the outside ball that some of the others had. So if the Crows are needing to, they're kind of relying him more as an inside mid only. Because they don't really have that depth, or they do, but they haven't explored it. So I think like that outside ball that he's kind of really good at, he's not really getting as much. So he's being relied on heavily on the inside. The thing I would do is look to trade, but keep a very close eye on the team sheets this week. Crows copped a bit for that midfield mix, so potentially that could shake up this week.
Yeah, definitely. I think if I was in Joe's situation and I had a Nick Martin and a Jordan Dawson, I would totally trade both, get 2 keepers into my team, or at least 2 guys who I thought could be keepers. And if you had a Dawson and a Dacos in the back line with a Hayden Young and a little bit of cash in the bank, you could almost downgrade Dawson to like a Luke Ryan and then go Hayden Young up to a Houston and then finish off your back line at the same time. So, or potentially Tom Stewart as well, because there is a bit of money difference there. So just something to think of. I think at this point in time, if the pick hasn't worked, you can always grab him later at a cheaper price if you have to, but jump off the sinking boat before you can. Let's go and we'll check out the next game. I think we've covered everyone. Jai Clark, if you've got him, cool. If you don't worry about him. And then Sean Manor as well. So had a good start and then kind of didn't do much afterwards after kicking his goal. That's probably about it. I think they're talking Dangerfield out might improve Jai Clark scoring a little bit, but we'll wait and see what happens with that. So, yeah, on to the next game, I guess. 1 sec. And it is North Melbourne losing to the Dockers. And it was a tough one to watch because in Supercoach, I do not have any of these 3 players. And for the last 3 weeks, they've just been scoring monster scores. So, unfortunately, I had to sit through that and sit through the game because I managed to watch it live, which was great. First game at Marvel for us. We're going to get a lot of Tom Powell talks. We've spoken about him already. So, I'm jumping on Tom Powell. Obviously, Harry Sheasel did well. And those that started Chariot at 400K, you're laughing at the moment because he's outscoring Grundy and a few other primos. Anyone else from North Melbourne you guys were looking at? Obviously, McKercher did well, and then Zach Fisher held faithful for those people that kept him in their sides.
Yeah, I thought, I mean, it's actually crazy to think how relevant this game is to Supercoach. So I think there's a lot to talk about here, but I'll do North Melbourne. So obviously a lot to talk about here. So up the top, you got Tom Powell, as we've said earlier, 93% CBAs, which was just ridiculous. I'm very interested to see if that's Barra Ruckman, if that's actually the highest CBA count for a midfielder this season. It's massive. So, he's obviously a very interesting trade target for people that are inclined to Tom Powell. I'm very interested in Tom Powell. I think the other 2 gentlemen beside me are as well. So he's one to think about. Harry Sheasel, I mean, if you've got Hayden Young and you haven't got Sheasel, then I think that is probably the easiest swap you'll do all season. Tristan Jerry started off really strong, but slowed up a little bit towards the second half, but he seems to have broken out as another good ruckman in the competition. Luke Davies-Uniacke, another one that started off really strong, but I didn't watch too much of this game, but I saw he was on about 68 at halftime, but sort of faded away in that second half quite clearly. I know a couple of people would have gone George Wardlaw, so you would have been happy with his game. Also got named as the Rising Star nominee, so well done to him. Zach Fisher, a lot of people got rewarded with the faith there, so 101 you'll take that. I think he's going to be more your inconsistent type. I mean, we literally saw that in the preseason as well, and we've seen the season thus far. So Then you've got blokes like Colby McKercher with a really good role. There's a bit of Zach Merritt about him, so I really like North Melbourne with that pick there in the draft. Charlie Lazaro got subbed off.
I knew it was going to happen. I knew it. I knew it was going to. He was either going to start the sub. He was either going to start the sub or get subbed out. I mean, a 66 is still decent though.
Still decent, but it's obviously massively concerning for Lazaro owners for sure. Could have been a 90 score really. And then you go, I don't think Simpkin played much in the midfield. I did hear they wanted to play him more half forward. Plus, he's just come back from a pretty serious concussion injury from Jimmy Webster. Toby Pink, probably one of the only basement defender price rookies that are still alive. So there's that for you. Zane Dersma, just the role's not too great, but scored a 53. And then you've got, I think Dylan Stevens would have played on the wing, and really there's just not much else there for North.
Yeah.
But literally half their players are relevant. It's pretty crazy.
Jaden, how many North Melbourne players do you have in your team at the moment?
I've got Sheasel, I've got McKercher and Fisher, and then I also have Lazaro. No LDU, just didn't quite see the natural improvement. But yeah, and they'll be joined by Tom Power this week, so
there you go.
that'll be fun.
5? Yeah, your forward line's just going to be North Melbourne players at the moment, or at least the ones that are scoring well. Yeah, very, very, very happy with them. Anyone you want to cover from North, Jaden, before we head over to Freo?
I don't think so. I think that's a very solid breakdown.
Yeah, I think we've got a few people in the chat, like Blues Fran here, who I was just talking about before. Looks like they might be flipping Grundy to Cherry maybe this week. Would you guys do that, or would you kind of just maybe go up with Grundy instead of going down and banking the cash?
I think what really helped me last season was I literally only made one ruck trade last season. Now, part of that's due to luck. The ruck's not going down there in Marshall and English, but I don't know. I just really want to limit ruck trades, and then you sort of have the flexibility with the other three lines there to make moves. So I'm not I can understand the theory behind it. I'm not massive though, because it's sort of like using another trade with a ruck and using a trade with a ruck, and then I think you've got blokes like Marshall that can go down in price that will tempt a lot of people at Grundy's buy. But I can see the extra little cash increase with Tristan Xerri, and seems like he's certainly having a breakout season. But I don't know. I'm personally not doing it. I can see why people are doing it. I don't mind it, but I'm probably going to pass on it.
Yeah, fair enough. Jaden, you going to do the swap, or are you going to keep him?
It actually was something that I considered today. But it's a lot of, I think, then I would probably have too many North players. So that is something to think about. And yeah, it seems like Cherry's playing really well. But I think maybe his matchups so far haven't been too difficult. And he's just been grabbing it out of the ruck like every single time that he can. So he's had 14 times where he's grabbed it out of the ruck, and that's like contested possession. You get like 3 or 4 points for that. So it's just, 3 points. You don't have to worry about a hit out to advantage because you just get the point yourself. So, yeah, that's more than anyone else in the comp so far.
Yeah, fair enough. Just some personal preference, I guess, a little bit there. Trav, unfortunately, I can't zoom anymore, but you can follow along if you jump on fanfooty.com.au. You guys can follow along with that as well. Yeah, few people asking here. We'll head over to Freo. Obviously, Luke Jackson, monster game, probably his biggest game of the year, just completely dominated North Melbourne. Caleb Sarong, another monster game, jumping on, I think it was 170 last week and then a 141 this week. So if you started the Freak, you'd be very, very happy. I almost had him in my starting team. I decided against it, and yeah, it's not worked out very well. Another big game from Luke Ryan as well, who I brought in my team. Brayshaw 123, so nice to see that. And then Jordan Clark, someone who's kind of gone unnoticed, 119, so pretty happy with those scores as well. Outside of Fife, and Hayden Young probably scoring a 62, which get in the bin. Did anyone else kind of surprise you? Maybe start with Jaden first.
Yeah, I traded in Sharp, which was all right. I don't think the score counted. Oh no, I actually had him on the bench actually. But yeah, I was confident. Even though he wasn't on the bubble yet, I was confident in his role. Yeah, Jordan Clark's interesting. There's also James Aish, who's done well for anyone who picked him up in draft.
He was looking great in the game.
He's going to get defender status 100%. So yeah, that's a free pick right there, and it was one flagged in preseason. So yeah, I hope you got him in draft. But yeah, Hayden Young is dominating the storylines this week. Yeah, just not quite having the same effect. When I looked at him like in the midfield last year compared to before that, his tackle points were outweighing the points that he lost from the great kicking, so the long kicks and things like that. But it's just not there. Like only 4 tackles, is that right? Yeah, 4 tackles. Not quite enough to make up for that kick drop off.
8 claims.
So only 7 effective kicks. And yeah, just like 6 different ways he lost points, like dropping the ball, freeze against. So it's a pretty rough game, but yeah, he's not quite making up that difference as a mid than as what he should.
Yeah, definitely. Steve, you going to jump on any of these players? Hayden Young's out of your team, I assume.
Yeah, I just don't think I can afford to wait to see him turn form. So, yeah, Hayden Young's gone for me. The break even's ridiculous as well, of course. So I can understand why everyone's jumping off now. Josh Draper was one I was sort of interested in having a look at, but I know he started off half all right, but clearly must have dropped off a fair bit. I know he's got good. He might have good job security long term without Cox. And then I guess the blokes I'm considering, I think Sarong I just can't quite fit in. I think I'm going to prioritise trying to grab Tom Green next week over Sarong. I think Luke Ryan's someone certainly that's very much in my trade consideration for me this week. The role is disgusting.
Looks so good.
It's an awful watch, but it's just I mean, you got to do what you got to do to get points, and Luke Ryan's doing definitely. That. And my critique on Ryan last season was his style of play wasn't getting Fremantle wins on the board when he was doing well. But now this season, Fremantle are starting to win more games. Well, I mean, we're 2 rounds in, but it seems to be the case early days. So I think Ryan is very much in my trade considerations, and I've already got Dogger. So
there you go. So Cheese was just asking here, would you guys would you trade in Luke Jackson this week? Obviously, he's had 2 monster scores, but he's still only 550k. Would you bring him in, or just kind of say, well, if you started him, great. If not, not. Personally, for myself, before you guys jump in, I almost feel like Darcy's just done some running. But I was saying to DR this afternoon that Rio might just keep him on the back burner for a while and just say, cool, we don't need you to come in straight away. We're winning games. We're dominating. We're doing really well. You're dominating as a midfielder / ruck / whatever you are in the forward line. Hey, Darcy, just take some extra weeks. I would not be surprised if Luke Jackson is solo rucking. It was only supposed to be 3 or 4. I would not be surprised if it was 5, 6, 7, 8 as well. What do you guys reckon?
I reckon that's a little bit of wishful thinking. I get what you mean, but I personally just think you either start him or you just don't pick him up, because with Darcy coming back from the sounds of it 3 to 4 weeks, and we're heading into round 3 now. So I don't know. I think a play for Jackson starters would now be that they can get that quick, massive cash gen going on the next couple of weeks, and then maybe swap to an Uber premium. So I don't know. I think if you didn't start him, I wouldn't bring him back in just due to we just don't know what the Darcy effect's going to be. Like you could be right, it could be 5-6 weeks, but from what we know at the minute, it's 3 to 4 weeks. So I'm just I don't think I'd bring him in if you don't have him.
Fair enough. Jaden, you going to bring him in?
I did have a play with it this afternoon, but yeah, it just doesn't seem like an option really because of it's a start or not at all.
He's not cheap as well, especially in that forward line with a lot of us picking, Tom Powell as a cheaper option that we hope maybe doesn't become a keeper, but at least make us some money. So yeah, bit of a stuck one there. Let me see. Cool. Yeah, can't bear watching Hayden Young play anymore, so my Supercoach team hurts my soul. There you go. Rio are lying. It will be 6-8, so we'll see what happens there. And then, Supercoach God reckons Jackson's going 200 against West Coast in round 6, so we'll suck for non-owners if that happens. So yeah, maybe we'll go with Jack and say, hey, Jackson's going to come in an 85 to 90. So we'll see with that. Let's head over to the next game. Hawks versus Demons. Now, we might let Steve take us through the Hawks. I know it kind of sucks talking about your own team, but how did you see this game, Steve? It was nice to see Sicily come back from what is 35 from last week.
Yeah, luckily, but unfortunately, his direct opponent Bailey Fritsch went nuts on him. So he's he's having a slow start to the season, but the midfield's certainly not helping that back line. So Sicily, I mean, if you held on to him, that would have been a good result, really. So, I mean, he had 9 marks in the first quarter. Hawthorn's game plan was awful in the first quarter, just sort of waved the white flag already. Yeah, wasn't it? It was a frustrating performance. But I thought Weddle looked good, but not classic relevant. Obviously, Massimo D'Ambrosio repaid people that brought him in a week early. Probably wasn't a great move. I did it myself, but got out of jail with that one. Could have been a dead pick, but I really liked Massimo because he was playing wing, but they were certainly looking to him to move the ball. So just due to how good of a kick he is, misplaced a couple, but I thought Massimo held his own there for 2 weeks in a row. If you started Amon, you'd be a bit disappointed there as well. I know some people, we were keen on him early days, sort of faded, and I think there's just a lot of mouths to feed in that Hawthorn back line. I thought Cam McKenzie looked good if anyone held him there. Josh Ward, I think, had 49% of CBAs. Don't know why, to be honest. I don't see much in him. Newcomb, if you held Newcomb, yikes. That is not ideal.
Not a great score for a 540k premium.
Yeah, back-to-back 66s. He's an easy trade if you've got him. So Connor McDonald really not getting – he spent a couple of CBAs in there, just not really getting involved though. Thought Watson looked better, but still obviously if you own him, I know some people do own him, not quite the real cash gen going on with Nick Watson there. Dylan Moore was disappointing, 44. I know some people had him as a bit of a dark horse as a forward option, but really good the week before. But bit of inconsistency there. And Finn McGuinness obviously tagged, and another bad week for Mitch Lewis to start the season.
Yeah, I guess kind of like when Hawks don't kick a lot of goals, their forwards don't score much in Supercoach. Hey, Jaden.
No, it wasn't a pretty game to watch if you were a Hawks supporter. And yeah, they've got a lot of positional shifts happening at the moment, so it was great to get a bit of a look at that. Which surprised me a bit about D'Ambrosio. Like, you wouldn't expect him to be scoring that well off the wing. But yeah, it's working for him. So, and that's why everyone's bringing him in. Over in fantasy, I did start with Carl Amon for that defender status, but yeah, it is a very odd one that he's the one in the back line and Ambrosio's the one on the wing, but it's not scoring that way. But yeah, big issues with the midfield centre clearances and stuff. But I'm a little bit optimistic for Hawthorn and Newcombe because last year Essendon and Melbourne were the two hardest teams to score points from stoppages against. So, yeah, maybe if you started him, you'd look back in hindsight and think, well, that was fairly obvious. Don't know why I started him against the two worst matchups possible. But but yeah, there's only the only way is up, I guess.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I was happy for those people that started Sicily. Hopefully, you guys didn't jump off and then Sicily's come out with a 123 because that would kind of suck. D'Ambrosio's the one for me. So very, very happy with the 87. I'll take that alongside the 120 from last week. Very happy there. Probably the only Hawks player that I've actually got in my team. So heading over to Melbourne, who I've only got one Melbourne player in my team. Oh, sorry, that's not true. That's not true. I have three Melbourne players. But no Petrarca, 146. Very, very happy there. Seems to have kicked the Clayton Oliver curse a little bit. I always found like Oliver would do better than the both, but Petrarca was massive this game. Big score from Max Gawn, who I know typically Hawks negate the ruckman from the opposition team. So very happy with the 113. And then moving down the list. So Billings didn't score well. Sucks for those people that brought him in. You got a bit of a price rise, but couldn't bounce back as much as what some people thought. Howes did well. And then Marty Hall with the 12. Not happy. Not happy. Jaden, you got anyone from Melbourne in your team?
Yeah, obviously Blake Howes.
Yep.
And yeah, Max Gawn as well.
Who are your ruckmen in your team?
I have Gawn and Grundy.
Okay, so you got Gawn as well.
Yeah, haven't moved away from that. But yeah, Gawn wasn't really a captaincy option this week up against Ned Reeves. That's fairly obvious. But he did all right. I think he started a bit slow and then came home strong, maybe, or maybe the other way around. I guess other names in terms of Melbourne, Salem was not on a lot, and then he jumped up in the last quarter. Obviously not very good for Supercoach because the game is already over. And yeah, a lot of people would be pretty happy with Blake Howes, especially with the defender carnage at the moment. And I reckon he would have, gone close to a lot of people's best 18 because they would have been fielding him. Yeah, you would have been fielding him with Zach Williams and then all the other injuries as well. So, yeah, I think they're the relevant ones for Melbourne.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Windsor. I'm just going to go check what Windsor went up in price by this week, but only scoring first price rise, only a 30K price rise. So sucks for those people that kept Caleb Windsor as well. You would have hoped for a bit more in scoring, but one of those failed 180K starting picks. Hopefully it doesn't hurt you guys too much. Got a couple of questions. Got anyone? Cool. Zach Stewart. Maybe it's Tom Stewart and Zach Merritt's brother. I don't know. Matt Crouch or Jack Steele as the Nick Martin replacement? I think we might have had a similar question before, but maybe we'll just go quick.
Steele?
Yeah, Steele.
Done. Cool. Cool. So I got one here. Aussie abroad. Hogan, Young, and Sexton out. So 3 outs for Powell, Stewart, and Winghager into his team. What do you guys reckon? Using his second boost. I don't mind the second boost. I think I might have to do the same. So what do you guys reckon? Hogan out, obviously on the bye. Hayden Young, bit of a pooper. And then Sexton out for Powell, Stewart, and Winghager. 3 players who don't have buys.
Yeah, I like it.
Jaden, you like it?
Yeah, it looks solid. Securita's got a decent run ahead, so
okay,
that would be the one I'm a little bit worried about, Windhager, but yeah, he's on the bubble. So.
Okay. Yeah, I don't mind it personally. I think I'm hoping Hogan can bounce back and pops out a couple of hundreds after this game. I think his run against defenders isn't bad. Obviously, Young's probably going, and then Sexton. I just don't know. He played forward with when Atkins came in as the as the sub. So hopefully that doesn't happen again. But yeah, if you're going to grab those 3 players, make it happen. All right, we're powering through these guys. Hopefully you're doing okay. If you want to shout out your channels and stuff, we'll do that at the end. So no dramas there. We're heading into, it's a shame Joe's not here because we're heading into the Bombers versus the Saints. And yeah, the Bombers were competitive. I have to say, I think up until about the 3rd quarter, it was very even. And then the 4th quarter was a bit of a blowout. Obviously, Papley scored well. Errol Goulden, who not many people have after he's, 77 in round 1. So missing out on those scores. Are you guys both Isaac Heaney owners?
Yeah.
This week
Yeah,
I am.
okay. Yeah, he was my vice captain this week. I was pretty gutsy and was just get rid of that 128 vice captain. I saw a few of these other scores this week and just didn't work out. Chad Warner 102 and then Big Brody Grundy 99. So average score compared to Ruckman. Obviously his disposal efficiency wasn't great. Gave away a few free kicks and had a few clangers this game.
Yeah, no, yes. So Sydney obviously got the job done. I think if anyone held Errol Goulden after his 77 against Melbourne, would have felt really relieved. Yeah, and scored a 149, so he was fantastic there. Heaney, I think that was his best CBA percentage of the whole season. Had the most touches as well. I think he had 32 touches. Brody Grundy certainly could have been a little bit disappointed about that, but it's not a score to scoff at, really. Matty Roberts, if you guys had him on field, you guys would have certainly felt very relieved. 94, fantastic, good role, good accumulator. So that was good. James Jordan just continues to pump out some very consistent scores here, just anything above the 80. So, James Jordan was really good as well. I didn't see much of this game because I was drowning my sorrows at the Glenferrie Hotel. Row bottom, I mean, I used to had a massive couple of weeks, but certainly lowered his colours there. And, Warner came on as a sub. Yeah, that's really about it. But Sydney got the jockeys.
Mate, Matt Roberts, I know a few people faded him kind of more expensive player in his first game. I don't think was that great, but if you do not have Matt Roberts, this guy could almost, I'm not going to say keeper status in the back line, but come round 7, I know a lot of people are going to be flipping Howes out and putting in Roberts into their back line. And similar to McKercher and a few other players are going to be doing the same. Who did you have in your team, Jaden, from the Swans in this game?
Yeah, so Heaney and Jordan, Grundy and Roberts.
Yep.
Also have Nick Martin. So we can have a chat about Essendon as well, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Merritt was amazing in the last quarter, trying to get them back into it single-handedly. And Gresham, probably their best performer. So where is he? Nick Martin. Yeah. He played
in the bin.
A bit better than last week. I'll have a look at his kind of score breakdown. So we had...
At least he played a lot of time on field. That was a big thing, because I know at points, I think in the last week's game, he might have spent a bit more time on the bench. So 96%, it's not bad.
Yeah, so as an owner, definitely not what you'd probably want to see. But he's got the role, so I guess you can at least give that to him. The 5 clangers, so a kick, a handball, he dropped a mark, and 2 clanger kicks, sorry, and then another clanger kick that was backwards. So that's definitely not something you want to be doing. So yeah, he's like we said before, he could be that one where you go, look, I'm already kind of paying up in defence a bit with the lack of rookies, so I might not need him back there. So you could do if you're running someone like Dawson, you could do that kind of hedging where you 1 down and 1 up and get 2 maybe little underpriced premiums. So that is a consideration as well.
Yeah. I know someone that I'm going to get yelled at by Joe if I don't talk about is Will Setterfield. So 17 contested possessions, 8 clearances, another score over 100. And I know Joe's been talking about him being the setter GOAT, but this guy's averaging a 120 as a 475k player who doesn't have an early buy. Totally left field. But have you guys even considered Setterfield as a pick, or just kind of, it doesn't matter?
What's his price?
475k. And he scored round 1, he scored a 119, and then round 2 he scored a 126. I don't know if this is just because Parrish is out. Maybe that's affected it a little bit. But, mate, good pickup if someone started him.
He gave me PTSD last year with a similar start. So, no, I'm not considering him. I'm not doing that crap again.
Fair enough. Same for you, Jaden. Not going there?
I mean, like, because I'm a numbers guy, like, I run the numbers and then add the names on at the end. Because often we can look at names like Setterfield and say, last year I traded him in. He went bad as soon as I got him. And too often we move on. But he met all the criteria last year for someone who can do this. So all the breakout candidate criteria I had, he was in there. And it was quite surprising, actually. And then preseason game looked amazing. Parrish is out. I'm kind of kicking myself that I didn't go there, to be honest, because, sometimes we focus on the name and not on the numbers. So, I'm not surprised it's going well, to be honest. But,
Setter and
the chat is certainly loving him as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a few options around the price. Obviously, a lot of us don't have what Jaden had with Nick Dacos in the middle and be able to flip him, flip a Hayden Young. But if you had no money, as Joe says here, Setter GOAT, there you go. We'll see what happens there, Joe. I won't pick him, but it's a good kind of watch for the whole season and see if his percentage ownership goes up a little bit. I don't think there's anyone else who was really relevant in terms of Supercoach making money or points. So maybe we'll head over to the next game. There is quite a few players who are very relevant in Supercoach. And that is, let me make this happen. Thanks, fellow. Cool. Dogs versus the Suns. And I'm not sure if this is the Suns' first loss for the year, but they did not look the same. I think Bevo just came out and whipped the Dogs into shape. Obviously, Tim English went massive. No Wits definitely hurt the Gold Coast, which maybe that was a big thing. But English went big. Bont went big. Waitman went big with 6 goals. Libba back to his form. And then Sam Darcy, boys. Sam Darcy. This guy has kicked the lob out of a spot in his team.
He's killed his career, that's for sure. Not sure how Lob can recover after this. He's just about toast now. People would have been happy with, as I said earlier, I think he could have done a bit better, but 138 is obviously a good score. Bontempelli, I know he dealt with an ankle and a knee issues during the game. We saw 2 separate instances. I know Dermy pointed out that he just didn't look very comfortable, but he got through all the injuries and ran on like an absolute beast that he is. So, Bont, you would have been happy if you had him captain there. Liberatore, I know a lot of people would have considered him. I know a few people that considered him. Really solid game as he does. Sam Darcy's going to have to be a bloke that we target now next week. So he's obviously a downgrade option, but we'll see how he goes this week as well. Riley Sanders, 99, much better performance, especially against a really good Suns midfield. So that is super promising with Sanders. Treloar went 100. Lockie Bramble, some people are considering Lockie Bramble. I know we've had a couple of questions
on him. Teams with him.
Yeah, he got 107, scored an 84 here. So maybe an alternative to Bonner, but I don't think too many people will be going there. If anyone picked Buku Kama, shouts my man Brad from Supercoach Pro. He went with him and he's playing down back, 65, really solid. So he was very good as well. As we head down the list, Harvey Gallagher is a rookie, 39, not great. And then obviously the bloke that got subbed out. In the space of 3 minutes, realistically, the poor bugger Nick Cutfield. Dislocated shoulder. 59% of super coaches would have felt that. So Obviously, super disappointing for the young lad. Another unfortunate injury for a player. We're seeing a lot of injuries this season, so the 40 trades are coming in handy. It will for this season. So, Nick Caulfield, very disappointing for himself and obviously owners as well. So, I think I don't really know what you even do there. Do you swap to Pink? I don't know if you want to do that. But
potentially hold him for a week or two and then look to offload him. Potentially anyone from the Dogs that you like, Jaden?
Pretty much all the ones mentioned. I guess the interesting thing is, there's two things. First of all, Sanders started at stoppages up forward. So he's on track for forward status at the moment, which is absolutely huge. And I guess we talked about Darcy, but what's the flow-on effect to Tim English? So the split was 61% to 39% ruck time. If English is only going 61% ruck time, he's probably not someone you're gonna want to have as a keeper. I know he's very good, but you do want those solo rucks, especially in Supercoach, where you get rewarded for your hit outs.
Maybe it takes more hit outs. Who knows?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one to watch going forward if people are going to be moving off Grundy, or I don't think you'll move off Gawn, but both of them have buys coming up, so it is something to consider.
Yeah, especially like even just a Sam Darcy, if he ends up getting ruck DPP at some point. Obviously, there's still a few more weeks. If he lines up in there and potentially gets that could offer up a few more things. It's very, very lucky that I think he came in now and not a couple of weeks ago, or at least, round one, because it's a really perfect downgrade target for people like myself who have a Sam Berry. Hopefully he plays one more week and then Darcy's on the bubble next week and I can do some things like that. So someone definitely to watch out for in there. As you say, Sanders doing really well. Very, very happy with that at the moment. So yeah, pretty happy. And then Buku Kamas for some people. I think Joe has him in their forward line. So not too bad. Touk Miller, so heading over to Gold Coast, obviously no width meant that probably Tim English did go better, but they held their own a little bit, I think, in just in terms of premium scoring. Touk Miller, people started him, brought him in, did very well, even though he only had 56% efficiency and gave away four free kicks, which won't happen every week. Collins 102, and then a Sam Flanders who kept up his 100 scoring. So I assume everyone here's got Sam Flanders in their team?
Yep.
No, I do not.
Okay.
So hopefully this week is the week where, make a move. Don't have Tom Green either, so this week I really need to make up some ground.
Yeah, that's it, right? Like Sanders, what is he priced at now? 528 with 69 break even. So there's still some potential there for some cash rises, but jump on him now if you how are you going to get Flanders in, Jaden?
I'm not too worried about the forward line with Heaney sitting there. I think just in general, we're not really looking at many DPP forwards that will be relevant at this stage based on what I've seen. So in terms of the forward line, I guess I'm not too worried if the gap between the best forwards and the medium forwards isn't that big, then I'm not too worried compared to other lines where the gap is bigger. So it's obviously a unique year in terms of that. So didn't want to spend up in the forward line when the gap is so small.
That's fair. Moving down the list, so I don't think Ned Moyle's going to be relevant in Supercoach, but 90 score there, so pretty good. Heading down the list, we spoke about Sexton a little bit a while ago with when Atkins came in, looked like Sexton lost his spot off halfback and then went to the forward line, hence his poorest scoring. And I think Cheese was posting in the chat. Where is it? Joe's pretty happy he jumped off the Buderick train. So I know a few people had him pre-season and then he had a decent score, I think maybe last week, and then this week with the 46. So hopefully no one in the chat had Buderick in their team. But yeah, he's a bit of a dud pick there. Jed Walter with the 37. So was expecting a little bit more, but it's probably tanked his cash gen, maybe a pick for next year. And then Tom Berry with the 24. So, yeah, I know a lot of people had jumped on him as a potential cash generator type player and, scores well this week's got a low break even for next week. But he's almost evened himself out, right? You guys didn't have Tom Berry in your teams?
No.
No.
That's good. Good. I'm happy to say that. Ben Long with the 11. So, obviously, he came out halfway through. Anything else we need to cover from this game, or this game, or we'll head to the next one?
I thought Bodie Euland looked pretty solid, 64.
Mhm.
So if anyone went him as a replacement for Gibcus, would be happy. So I thought Euland was all right, but I'm pretty sure he was on Waitman, the poor bugger. So yeah.
Sucked in. Alrighty, let's head over to the Tigers versus Port Adelaide. Now, we won't talk about Zach Butters 175 because it's a bit of a rough one for those people that didn't captain him like myself. Are the Tigers in trouble, boys? Liam Baker 140, Rioli 100, Tim Taranto 100, and then the rest of them were pretty average. I think a few people had Seth Campbell on his first price rise, so congratulations for there. I'm pretty sure Skodfather had him. If you're watching, mate, just let us know in the chat. But moving down the list, there wasn't anyone else who was really Supercoach relevant. Thompson Dow with the 49 points. Anything you guys picked up from the Richmond game or kind of just, trudged along and they're pretty lucky to get a 92 this week?
James Trezis won the monitor. Scored a 69. I know he's 207K, but he's won the monitor. I think he's good at accumulating the ball. Before he got picked up in the mid-season draft, I was pretty keen on him early in the preseason, but just didn't seem to be best 23. So we'll see what his job security is like. Hopefully we get a second look at him next week, but he's certainly one I'm keeping my eye on because I think he can be a really good scorer down back.
Yeah, definitely. Jaden, anyone else you picked up on? I know a few people have in chat have kind of said Short. You didn't have him in your team, did you? I know a lot of people have jumped off similar to a Nick Martin and a Hayden Young as a, hey, you're not going to score much in your 530K.
No, I don't have Short with the early buy. But yeah, to be honest, Richmond are in a fair bit of trouble. And in a game like this, it's really not surprising to see some ceiling scores when Richmond are not going to be like. The issue with Richmond is like they're decent enough that they're not going to give up a lot of stats, but then they're just not going to get any themselves either. So what that means is there's just going to be a lot of scaling up. That's why in a game like this, Butters can go 175, but in another game, Stewart can only do the 130, even if they're both best on. So and Port Adelaide are good for that as well because they're a low stat team. But yeah, just in terms of this game, plenty of scaling up across the board. So that makes the scores look quite a bit better. But yeah, in terms of Jaden Short, just not getting enough of it.
Definitely.
Just a little bit halfway in between different things. Just not really the main one. Rioli looked quite good across the ground, so that could be the reason.
Yeah, if you look, just kind of following on with what you said, right? Half the Port Adelaide team scored a 90 or above. So that just shows like how much dominance in scoring Port Adelaide had. Steve, you had Zach Butters 175 doubled this week.
Yep, that made my week, that's for sure. So yeah, super pleased about that. I was saying Bond score 136 really went, oh crap. It was a captain's. I had Bond for most of the week, but thought I'd switch to Butters, and I just said, oh, God, why did I do that? But Butters, Butters went nuts, especially in the second and the third quarter. Got a lucky 50-metre penalty towards the end of that quarter. I think he put a bit of mayo on that, but I'm not complaining. So, but I know some Tigers fans are pretty disappointed about that. So super pleased with him, and he's going to be a bloke that people will be considering heading into this week. I think he went 189 against Melbourne last year, so I think Butters again could be a good vice captain option. So that's something I'm considering as well.
Jaden, who was your captain? I don't know if we touched on that this week.
Yeah, I went with Bont, so
Okay.
could have been worse. I had
Yeah.
Butters over in fantasy, which worked out all right, but that goal was fairly interesting. Obviously, Richmond didn't like it, but I think it was pretty obvious. Like, he'd taken the mark already. As a captainer in at least one format, that was nice to look at.
But Butters VC against Melbourne. I'm not sure of the stats, Jaden, but do you think it would be a favourable matchup for him?
Oh, well, yeah, but I did say earlier that Melbourne were the toughest stoppage team to score against last year. So, maybe not going to be his career best game like last year.
Yeah, fair enough. Heading on through the rest of the team. So, William Drew, I don't think many people had him in Supercoach, but watching the game, he was everywhere. I thought Dan Houston might have had a better game than what it was. Obviously, one free kick and scored a goal. Only a 108. So I guess a few people have got him versus Luke Ryan and working out which one's better in scoring. No one's picked Kane Farrell in Supercoach, but boy, he just looks great. And then someone who a lot of us have is Ollie Wines in their team. And last week, 94, this week, 99. I'm waiting next week if he can score 100 for me. Hold or trade for you guys this week if you had him in your sides?
He's in my team. I'm considering it, like, just for other opportunities, because he's not really. He might go up a little bit in price, but he's obviously. I think Willem Drew certainly hurt Ollie Wines. That's for sure. I felt like we aren't really getting what Ken Hinkley said, so he's in my plans because he's not a keeper, but I guess he's a good placeholder for now. But at the same time, you're getting rookies that are scoring pretty similar to him, so it's like, and they costed literally 250k cheaper. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't be shattered if he left my side this week, but I might still hold.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Jaden, is he in your team?
Yeah, I've got him as well. Kind of just kept him to save the trade just for 1 week. And a few people were more keen because Horne-Francis was out, but the flag for me was that Horne-Francis was on track for forward status. So what actually happened in the first game was Wines wasn't at the centre bounce and Horne-Francis was, which had great effect. But then around the ground, they just swapped. So Wines was already playing full-time mid anyway, which is why he scored exactly the same with Horne-Francis out. Just not quite having the impact that we would have liked. The role isn't... Well, the role's there. It's just not quite the right player.
It feels like he's spending a bit more time on the bench as well. Like 75% for a midfielder. You'd hope that would be like an 80 to 85% maybe.
Yeah, I mean, he does really only have one role. So that's probably where that comes from. Like, I'm pretty sure last week Horne-Francis had over 90% time on ground, and that's just because he plays mid and forward. But especially with 23 in the team now, like, you're going to have these players that only do one thing and then they go to the bench if they're not doing it. So not too surprised with that. But yeah, that's another flag for a trade out.
Fair enough. I'll have to maybe we'll get you on for a DPP predictions video later on during the week or next week. Moving down the list, so no one really has Ryan Burton. No one's got Finlayson, but a few people have got Connor Rosie. And it was a shame to see him only pop out the 90. Didn't hit triple figures, but 5 clangers didn't help much. Moving down the list, no one else is really relevant, it looks like, in Supercoach. I know a few people had Soldo in their teams, and they were like, hey, Soldo did really well last week. Well, he scored a 44 and got smashed. So, unfortunately, Nankervis went bam, and then Soldo fell over. A bit of a shame because I would have loved him to kind of go big against his old team. Let me go, and then didn't score well against them.
No revenge game for Soldo.
Nah, unlucky.
Got the win, though.
Few people may have Francis Evans in their team, but a bit too expensive. And then, Jackson Mead as well. A few people might have him in their team. So someone who I think has scored similar to this for both weeks, but there's just better options, right? 200K. I
don't mind him, but I think there's better opportunities elsewhere.
Yeah. So Jack's a little bit like me and probably you guys. Wines was the glue for the buys, and then he's gone out for someone else. Bit unfortunate because he's not going to go too much up in money. So yeah, bit of a sad one there for us. Heading over to the last game of the week, and thank you everyone who's jumped on and watched us, and our two great co-hosts here, Jaden and SDS Supercoach Steve. It's I know it's been a little bit longer, and there's been a little bit of lulls and whatnot, but I love it. Thanks for guys for jumping on. So heading into the last game, I actually watched this game because my captain was playing, and my captain did not score as much as Zach Butters, who played the game before. But let's go West Coast first, because the Giants came out and smacked them. Jeremy McGovern, a few people have put him in their team at what, 480k. Is he in your calculations, boys? No early buy, sub 500k. I think he had a decent score last week as well. Let me just quickly check. But let me know if he's in your teams or not. Have you been thinking about him?
Elliot Yeo.
No, McGovern.
Oh, McGovern. No.
109 last week and then a 144 this week.
Nah, not my kind of pick I make. So, plus his injury history isn't too great. So there'll be one I'll let slide to the keeper.
Yeah. Is Elliot Yeo in your team, Steve?
No, but have been playing around with adding him in, but not sure if I'll fulfill with that. But I think if you started Elliot Yeo, turned out to be he's off to a good start. He's been a good pick. He's playing a really good role.
Yeah, I know. I've been a bit jealous for those people that started him at, what was it, 440k or something. Jaden, do you have either of these two players in your team?
Yeah, I have Elliot Yeo. So that was a great result. He looked pretty good. And he looked really good. McGovern, I mean, probably not. Well, I don't have him, but I'm just looking at his score here. I'm trying to figure out where the points came from. Like, plenty of kicking, 4 that were long to advantage, so that's 23 points right there. But surprisingly, like, I would have thought for a score like that, he would have had to take some contested intercept marks, 0.
He did. Yeah, maybe not.
He had 2 uncontested intercept marks, and so the other 5 were just free uncontested marks. So yeah, that's a little bit surprising. So maybe the disposal points are there. But yeah, I probably would have thought with a ceiling score like that, he needs to be intercepting. But yeah, I'd say he's got a massive monopoly on the kick-ins, which is good. So that's why he's scoring well. I think Duggan might have gone back as well in this game. He played full mid in the first game.
Yeah, I think he was on. I think he was on Jesse Hogan for basically the whole game. So kind of sucked as a Jesse Hogan owner that Duggan was just everywhere on him. Quick question before we go down the list. Obviously, Jaden owns Yo. Steve, would you bring Yo in? I know you kind of touting around him. If you've got the money and you wanted to free up some cash from a Hayden Young, can you do it, or is it more a case of, hey, we should start the risk, not bring it in halfway through? I mean, it's only week 2, but you know what I mean.
I don't hate it. Like, it's clear that the roles. Yeah, I think it's fine if you want to bring him in. The role's there. Obviously, as well, the next few rounds are best. I think 3 of the next 4 rounds are best 18 as well. So, I mean, we know how injury prone he is. So it's like one of those things where in best 18, I mean, if you got injured, it's not the end of the world because they'll fall. An injury game will fall off his your best 18 score. But yeah, so I like the role, and we've seen his scoring history in the past. So I like Elliot Yeo as a target. I know some people will either consider, as well as Nazai Wanganeen Malira, or people could go further to Houston or Stewart or Ryan. But I think you can do worse. I don't think you can. I think you can do worse than Elliot Yeo, to be honest.
Yeah, 70% time on ground. So scoring a 110 of 70% time on ground.
That's promising.
Like that's pretty good. Time on ground and half a groin left. So we'll see. Yeah. I think Jaden, how do I win Supercoach? Supercoach God's asking.
I'm definitely not the right person to ask about that. This is like my full first serious year. Every other year I've given up halfway through. So maybe I think you're a better chance than me. So there you go. You've bet one person. Now you just need to beat 180,000 other people.
Fair enough. Heading down the list, so I don't think many people have picked the Tim Kelly. A few people might have had Jinby, probably not great with the scoring. And then Harley Reid. So coming off what this week is his first price rise. I don't know. Are you guys satisfied with the Harley Reid pick? I've seen a few people jump off him. It was just like, cool, next week I'm getting rid of Harley Reid. He hasn't made me enough money. Are you guys satisfied with that? So what has he got, a 70 average at the moment at 200K?
I'm fine with it. I think Adam Simpson, before we started recording, came out tonight and said we'll be using him as a predominant mid. I believe he had 79% CBAs last week against the Giants. So I think Harley Reid's fine. I think he'll make some money. Was he 209K? So I think he can get 350 plus. And I think a team like West Coast will be feeding him the ball a little bit more than other players as well, just to continue his development, because he's the real golden child of the Western Australian sport right now. So, I mean, the bloody Western Australian can't stop putting him on the cover. So, I like Harley. I think we have bigger issues than Harley.
Yeah, fair enough. Moving down the list, there's probably no one else relevant in Supercoach for West Coast. Pretty fair to say, guys?
Yeah.
Yep, cool.
Yep.
Maybe some people had BJ Williams, but, 40's not that great. Heading over to one of the more relevant Supercoach teams is probably North Melbourne at the moment, and potentially West Coast and GWS and Sydney as the two teams that I know a lot of people have players from. Kieran Briggs, 139. I'm so sad this guy has an early buy, because if he didn't, I think he would be in my team instead of Grundy. Just a monster, and just beat up BJ Williams as well. And Jake Waterman, poor kid, birth of fire. I mean, it's not his first game, but come on, guys. Tom Green, who was my captain, scoring the big 137, so I was happy with that. And then Sam Taylor. Jaden, do you have Sam Taylor's intercept mark numbers there? Because he was just jumping. I think he gave himself a cramp with the amount of marks and intercepts he took this game.
So 33 points from contested intercept marks, of which he did 5, and then 4 of them uncontested. So that's only 11 points. But, yeah, that's where it all came from.
One player that I know I'm definitely looking at for either next week or the week after is Lachie Whitfield. So he has had I think this is his third score over 100. First week was maybe a 117 and then a 120 and then a 124 at 540K with no buy, I think, until round 12. Are you guys considering him next week?
Yeah, I actually like him, and he does seem like early days he could be very much so a top 6 defender. But I'll probably target Tom Green first. I feel like he's more of the bloke that I just really need getting into my side. But if I can't get the money up to him, and I'll just sort of death ride him, which I'd hate to do, but could be an option. But then I'd probably look to get in Lachie Whitfield, I reckon.
Yeah. Jaden, have you considered Lachie Whitfield for your team?
No, not at all, actually. Okay. But, yeah, now that you bring him up, he is someone to think about. Yeah, true. I think it'd be good if he had the buy in round 2. But he has played North and West Coast already, so bunch of free stats. The Collingwood game he did all right in as well, but he had like 40 kick-ins because we couldn't kick straight and lost the game off that alone. So yeah, maybe he's that's about where he can be, but I probably want to see him against some different matchups first.
So I think from memory, he's got, outside of Sam Taylor, I think he's actually the highest priced player. And I know some people don't take that into account, but generally a lot of these players, when someone's highly priced like that, they're scoring a lot and maybe they're getting a lot more of the ball. Someone who did very, very well, who's very cheap and just hit his bubble, is Harvey Thomas. You guys didn't have him in your teams, did you?
No.
Yeah. I got scared away by the 40 in round 1 and then the 45. And then he scored a 107. And I know it's West Coast, but mate, those 5 people that probably had him in their teams, they'd be very, very happy with keeping him. Moving down the list, Iden 102, Canelio 93. You guys didn't trade out Aaron Cadman, did you? I assume both of you have him in your team.
No, I'm loving having him.
People have traded him out this week. People are doing silly things, and I'm just like, mate, Cadman, he's Cadman. Just leave him in there. Few people got Himmelberg. Obviously, the experiment hasn't worked too well for us in Supercoach. Jacob Weir, the same thing. Boys, I'm so upset with this. You do not understand. I was hoping for like an 80 or a 90. Don't give me this 66 nonsense. Duggan just wear him like a glove. And yeah, bit of a hard day for us. Jesse Hogan owners, especially coming off the 160 the week before.
Yeah, that was rough as it's just not really my kind of trade I would make, but I can understand the theory. And I mean, Hogan towers a bit over Duggan as well. So, I don't think things went Jesse's way. It was just one of those days where, it would have been rough for Jesse Hogan owners. I think there would have been a few people that might have captained him if Dacos failed. So, bloody rough.
Yeah. And then, I think that's probably about it. Anyone else you guys want to talk about from this game?
I wouldn't bring in it was at Harvey Thomas. I probably wouldn't bring him in now. Just because I think it's very similar to like a Tom Berry situation with that one.
Yep.
And he's got the bye anyway, so not relevant to bring in this week.
There you go. Jaden, anyone else you can kind of pick up on, or someone who looked interesting from the Giants team, maybe?
I think we've pretty much covered it. Josh Kelly was interesting. Didn't really score that well, but he saved it with a couple of goals. Seemed like he was maybe out on a wing a little bit more. So that's something to keep an eye on, and potentially some more points for Tom Green, really.
Nice. All right. Well, we're just going to finish up. We'll have a couple of questions. Thank you guys for jumping on as long as you have. Hopefully, maybe we've got 5 minutes or so. We'll bust through some questions, and then we'll head off for the day. What do you guys reckon?
Sounds good.
Cool. All right. How long do we hold Harley? Don't see him scoring more than 80-ish.
What, average or in a single game? I think he can go 80 plus. Average. Yeah, okay. Hold him till he's not making any more money. I know that sounds basic, but I don't see anything discouraging yet with Harley. It's a tough matchup, the Giants as well.
Okay. I'm not sure, mate. Give this one for Jaden and we can come back to it. How's Rosie tracking for DPP? Do you reckon he's going to get it, Jaden, or is he kind of not in the realm yet?
Well, yeah, the first game means it's pretty difficult for him because he was very much
in the mid.
A mid. Yep. Yeah, I was watching and he was up forward a bit to start with, but I don't see it happening really. Not on track is pretty much all I can say.
Ryan VC this week. I'm not sure who Freo have, but
Adelaide at Optus.
Adelaide. Ryan VC, boys, or no?
Yeah, could do worse.
Yeah. Jaden, no?
I'm going to say no because Adelaide are pretty restrictive to the outside ball. They like to keep it in and rely on their midfielders.
Fair enough. Heading down the list. Harry's asking here, Ryan and Dempsey or Sarong and Pink in your team?
That's tough. I'd go maybe Ryan and Dempsey.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd go Ryan and Dempsey.
Same thing for you, Jaden? Ryan and Dempsey?
Yeah, that's my initial thinking. I just think Pink's probably a bit of a waste of a trade, potentially. I'm not sure how his scoring's going, but I'll just have a quick look.
It'll be a slow burn, I reckon.
Yeah, so... yeah, I think Sarong, like with Sarong, he's playing really well, but like that's probably as far as he can go. Like he's not really going to be scoring any better than what he has. So I guess you could say the only way is back to the average a little bit because it's been essentially best on ground 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
So yeah, Ryan and Dempsey's the one I gravitate to more.
Yeah, I think that's the same for me too, Harry. Grab the Ryan and Dempsey purely for the fact that our defense rookies have been so shit that you'll get a much better score out of Dempsey than you will out of Pink, I think, and just a good cash increase as well. Let's kind of go down. So we've got Supercoach God here, obviously content creator himself. But what would you guys give you as your number one piece of advice? Let's say for round 3, or just in general for Supercoach. I'll let you guys have a bit of a think. I've got one for myself already.
Well, I guess prioritize cash gen. So just make sure you're setting yourself up for the best opportunity to get your side to be making money. Really, like that's, and then, but if you're beginners, yeah. So I think just follow a lot of, just do a lot of research, get as much content in as you can, and just certainly prioritize cash gen heading into this week.
Yeah, fair enough. Jaden, same for you?
Yeah, I think in terms of I am pretty much a beginner, I would say. Never done any good in this. So I think the best thing you can do is watch the games and then pick some good players. Like don't just pick players that have these low break evens and then they're not actually that good. So you end up with players like Tom Berry purely because everyone's getting him for the break even, but he's not actually someone that's going to continue that type of scoring. So I know it's pretty obvious, but try and pick good players because you do get rewarded for that in Supercoach scoring. So watch the games and pick the ones that look good.
Fair enough. I think for me, the biggest thing is make sure you've got the cash gen. Try not to burn too many trades. But then also, this week is definitely one of the more crucial weeks in Supercoach. You need to shore up your team and make sure it's okay. Grab the players you want to get, but make a team that you're very happy with. If you've got dead rookies on the bench, get rid of them. If they're not going to be jumping up in price, because a lot of people coming into the next few rounds are going to have a lot of rookies at 300K over the next week or two, and you guys are going to struggle if you've got like someone who's not making a lot of money. Let's move down the list. Okay. I think that might be it, boys. Let's finish off with that one. Jaden, where can we find you on the socials? I know you've been on the show before, but kind of just what have you got coming out and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's good to talk through some things.
Thank you very much for coming on as well.
Definitely a lot to think about this week. It's the most important week, so it's good to spend time, talking through it because it can, it can actually help you decide yourself, which is good. You can follow me over on X at Jaden_Poposky. So I guess the main thing I do is just post a lot of stats that I come up with. I'm not very consistent. I don't really post anything twice. I just post whatever I think is interesting, and that will help my own team. Turns out that goes pretty well with other people's teams as well. So yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, definitely. Steve, what have you got coming out? Where can we find you?
So Stephen W. Smith on Twitter, on there a fair bit. SDS Supercoach on YouTube, of course. Going to be doing a bit of content this week, especially now at the long Easter break. So that'll be good fun. Doing a live stream with Brad. Jump on, jump off will come back as well. So hope you guys are excited for that. And it's an honour to hit 1K subs. So it's like, really cool to see your work get paid off a bit. So going well. And that's where you can find me.
Definitely. Guys, it's been great. We've had 60 odd people on the entire time. If you haven't already, sub to Jaden, jump him on Twitter, SDS Supercoach as well. Sub to us if you haven't already. Smash that like button. Everything little helps as well. So, amazing guys. Thanks for coming on. And we'll see you guys on Thursday. Joe and I will put out a couple more videos throughout the week, but we'll have the drive home on Thursday with potentially a special guest. So stay tuned for that. All right. Catch you in the next one, guys.
Thank you.